The closure of the Strait of Hormuz is affecting critical commodities beyond oil and gas, including helium. For more on how this could impact the markets, we're joined by Phil Kornbluth, president of Kornbluth Helium Consulting. It's good to have you join us. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Lindsay.
So
good to be here.
Yeah, just before we get started here, for those who maybe don't know, can you explain exactly what industries depend on helium and what its main uses are?
Yeah, well, helium is a pretty vital industrial commodity, and the biggest the biggest application for helium is the semiconductor chip manufacturing industry. They account for more than 20% of the demand for helium. MRI scanners, that's the second biggest application, and it's used in aerospace and welding and optical fiber manufacturing, and it's used as a diving gas, and it's used for party balloons as well. So it's but it's got a host of different applications, and party balloons is on about 10% of the story.
Yeah, I think most people, when they think of helium, they might think of that, but it's obviously a very important role in a lot of important equipment. What percentage of the global supply passes through the Strait of Hormuz?
Well, if all of the three plants in Qatar are operating at full capacity, Qatar would account for roughly a third of global helium supply. So it's very significant.
Okay, so 30% of the world's helium, as you say, roughly, is produced in Qatar. What alternative sources are available to countries who may be trying to import helium right now, given what's happening in Qatar and basically in the Middle East as a whole?
Yeah, well, the U.S. is the largest supplier, but they're leading into this shortage, into this crisis rather. There has been an oversupply of helium for the last couple of years, and there is some slack in the system, or there was some slack in the system, and there's a recently commissioned plant in Russia that could add about 600 million feet to the market. Air Liquide has a storage cavern in Germany that could add product to the market. There are a couple of storage caverns in the U.S. One's Air Products and one is Linde. So there is some supply available, and I saw the North American Helium logo. They're supposed to bring on a new plant later this year, so they're another place where there might be some supply. The trick is that the containers, there's a large number of the ISO containers that transport helium around the world are in the wrong place right now, because there's probably close to 10% of the world's container fleet either full, sitting in Qatar, or empty, waiting to be filled in Qatar, and they need to be moved somewhere else to obtain supply.
Obviously, that's not going to be an easy task right now.
Right.
Right. Okay. You mentioned all the other countries, Russia, the U.S., that could be alternative suppliers of helium. Are we at that point yet where countries that are looking to import more helium and can't get it from Qatar because the strait is basically closed? Are we at that point where importers are looking at these other countries instead?
Well, people are definitely looking at their options. The physical shortage hasn't really hit yet, because the container that didn't get filled last week in Qatar would have taken several weeks to even a month or more to get to the market in Korea or Taiwan or China or whatever. So there's a lag here in terms of, like, when you turn off the spigot in Qatar, how long it takes to feel the shortage at the end user level. So, but immediately, folks who rely on Qatar for supply have been looking around for replacement product, whether spot loads or just other places where they might be able to buy product. So that part is actively going on. There's already been a couple of force majeure declarations by two of the major suppliers. Supply allocations have been implemented by some of the major suppliers, and pricing surcharges have been implemented as well.
You've mentioned, though, that there's a previous oversupply issue with helium that may help to offset, the current shortage. Is that still the case?
Yes.
And how long would that be able to offset the shortage for?
Well, okay, so the previous oversupply would not be able to offset the loss of Qatar supply entirely. It might be able to offset maybe half of it, so that where we end up is with a 10 to 15% supply deficit if Ras Laffan stays down for an extended period. So, a 10 to 15% deficit is a lot more manageable than a 30% deficit. And, until the containers can get repositioned, it might feel like a 30% deficit for a few months.
Even after this conflict ends, do you expect the helium sector to face production ramp-up issues, kind of like what we're probably expecting from the oil industry once everything's said and done and these facilities can actually start to rebuild and ramp up?
My understanding is that when the light turns green on the Strait of Hormuz and Qatar Energy decides to turn the LNG plants back on, that it would take about a month to restore full production. So it's almost like, you have to add an extra month onto the length of any disruption of the Strait of Hormuz for that factor.
Okay. Phil Kornbluth, president of Kornbluth Helium Consulting. Really good to get your insight. Thanks for joining us today.